Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we're going to talk a little bit more about wings and structures like that. Because after that last video, there were people who had some concerns and some questions came in. Basically, wondering if I felt that talking about it was giving them tips and would make them better at doing it in the future. And the answer to that is definitely not. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First, the stuff that I went over, it's basic. It's basic. It's not even like a 101 course. That's the introduction to the introduction. None of that is secretive. It's in the manual. It's not high-speed stuff. This is you could pick up most of that by binge watching a couple of seasons of The Americans. The political wing would be the people at the embassy. The handler, well, that's the cutout. And the militant wing would be the protagonists. They actually use dead drops a lot in the series and get into stuff that is way more advanced than what I talked about. This isn't secretive stuff. Most of this you could pick up in a Tom Clancy novel, to be honest. And then there's the real reason I'm not concerned about it. If you go back to that video and you look in the comments, there's a whole bunch of people that are like, hey, this group did that. They used that structure. They had a political wing and a militant wing. And there's probably a dozen examples in the comments section. And everyone that I saw, yes, they definitely adopted that structure. All of them have something in common, though. What is it? They're all left-wing. All of them. Name a right-wing group that successfully adopted this structure. And if you don't know anything about this topic, just know that right now at home, a whole bunch of people who know a lot about that topic are sitting there going, because it's really hard to find right-wing groups that were successful at using this. There's actually like academic debate over why right-wing groups are so horrible at this. My theory is that it has to do with the ideology themselves. It has to do with the ideology itself. In the United States, we focus on left and right when we talk about stuff, But there's another axis. You have the left-right axis, but you also have the up and down, the vertical axis. And at the top is authoritarian. At the bottom is anti-authoritarian. If you're in Europe, libertarian, but in the United States, don't say that, or it's just going to open up this whole other topic. That word doesn't mean the same thing here. When you're talking about groups that would be seeking to change the system of governance, these are groups that are on the fringes. These are extreme groups, Typically, groups that are far left are also down. They're anti-authoritarian. They believe in egalitarian ideologies, things where everybody's equal, everybody has autonomy. It lends itself well to having a structure that is decentralized. Right-wing groups that are extreme are the polar opposite. They move up. They rely heavily on hierarchy. And that disrupts the ability to adopt any decentralized structure. It's really hard to operate under a strategy that requires a lot of autonomy when your entire ideology is about hierarchy and not having autonomy. The way right-wing groups typically try to compensate for this is just by sealing themselves off, but then they don't have a support network. So that they tend to fail. It would be super beneficial, in my opinion, if in the future they continue to try to use this strategy, because almost assuredly they would mess it up. It just doesn't, it doesn't lend itself well to right-wing groups. That structure doesn't work for them. I can assure you that at some point in the last year, there was some guy sitting in the FBI headquarters looking at photos of members of one of these groups, and he's sitting there looking, and he's like, hey, these people have rank. Thanks for the organization chart. This is going to be easy. It doesn't work for them. And then I think the reason they tried to use this strategy is because the tactics and strategy and organizational structure that typically works for right-wing groups really can't be used very well in the United States at this time, because it's very clear what it is. When they use the strategies that tend to work for right-wing groups, it's marching in the street, and it looks exactly like what it is. And in the United States, people don't like that. I would point out that the reliance on command and hierarchy and authority kind of cast doubt on their battle cry of freedom. I wouldn't worry about the strategies that are used in this sense. I think in the future what you would really need to be looking for is more of a series of legal maneuvers to effect a self-coup. I don't know that they're going to rely on shock troops again. It's probably going to be more in the halls of courthouses than out in the streets. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.